Be here so they can get the replay. Here we go. Wonderful. Thank you everyone for putting your place on earth that you're sitting. It's so beautiful to connect across the globe through this technology. It's like magic that we can do this, and no other time that we know of in human history were humans able to do what we're doing right now, and to really cultivate these connections across the globe, to cultivate this global community of heart. And so, I might need to put someone on mute, but I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Sasha Benedetti, and I'm here in Northern California. And I like to think of myself as a practical mystic. I have had careers in the healing arts, and I've studied astrology for at least 30 years. I've been enchanted with this map. And it was 8 years ago that I started to wake up to the living sky and the movements and the cycles and the resurrection of the feminine principle in all things on the earth. And so I'll be talking about that more and what that means. We're going to be looking at Venus in her cycle. And so it was 8 years ago when I watched Venus cross the face of the sun, the last time in our lifetime that we could see that visibly. It only happens once in a lifetime. And it was also visible in 2004. So there's always a pair. Those times when we can see Venus cross the face of the sun always happens in the same signs. They always happen in the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius. If we go back. So these are star points. When Venus meets the sun, this is a star point. And this is what we're going to be talking about today, because we have a star point happening today. But that beginning of the Venus cycle, I didn't know it was a Venus cycle. I had been studying astrology. I've been studying the papers. I had my ephemeris. I was really like, it's infinite. I was like crunching all the time to understand all the concepts, and that was the moment that I got the transmission that the wisdom was in my body, that this cosmic wisdom, as above so below, was actually inside of my being. And I could bring it forth, of course, using the head and using the intellect, but also it could come forth from this deeper place, this embodied place. And so I think oftentimes we create meaning from up here. We're like, oh, what did it say in books? And this person said this and that. And that is helpful to conceptualize. But there is a deeper knowing. And that is what the Venus cycle brings us into, this deepest truth. And how do we live from our deepest truth at this incredibly transitional time? That is the inquiry here. And so when Venus crossed the face of the sun in June of 2012, that was the dawning of this feminine principle that's many call the solar feminine, returning to the earth and rebalancing and coming into invitation to have this embodied leadership of heart, of feminine wisdom, of feminine principle. So I'm so glad to be here. I'm so delighted. I've been working on this presentation so you'll get both the concept and then the transmission, because we need both. We're not saying, let's throw out our brain wisdom, let's throw out our head, let's throw out our intellect, let's throw out the rational. No. This is a time of weaving them together. So I woke up to that and it totally changed my life. I decided to leave teaching, which I had been teaching, and I was actually out in the schoolyard with all my kindergartners, first graders, and second graders in this very progressive Montessori school. We had the eclipse classes. We're watching Venus cross the face of the sun. And I realized that I needed to create the life that was the most passionate for my daughter, for my young daughter at the time, after having gone through a very difficult divorce, very difficult situation. I had to go for it big time. And that felt like that was the message from Venus, is like the embodied wisdom and go for it. And so I did. I made many leaps, and I could go on with many stories about these different star points and what has happened at each star point. So I'm going to give you some clues for your own reflections. I hope you have a pen and a paper. If you don't have one, you might want to grab one. Because these are very potent moments. And oftentimes when people begin to see those dates, they go, oh my gosh, whoa, wow. when we're living from heart, when we're living with all of us, which includes the feminine wisdom that has been left out, that has been oppressed, that has been suppressed, that has been, violated and pushed down by the dominator culture, as we bring that feminine wisdom back in, integrated with the masculine principle together, this is really how we wake up to our full potential. And just for anyone who has not been following my work, when I say feminine principle and masculine principle, this is not necessarily connected to sex or gender. These are the two primal energies of the universe that create. They're the creative forces. So we could call them other things. We could call them yin and yang. We could call them many things. I'm saying masculine principle and feminine principle, and they never can live without each other. They are always and forever in this dance, and undefinable. When you start to go into one, you find the other. When you start to go into the other, you find the one. They're a constant mystery. And I would say that, women who have grown up with female bodies and had the experience of your beauty being dangerous, your sexuality being a liability, your your experience of being female and cycling every month, and living in a culture that has said that women are less. It is an incredible empowerment to take that feminine energy and to bring it forth. And it's different than the moon energy. It's different than the lunar feminine. And we need both of them, but now is the rise of the solar feminine. And I'm going to show you the difference energetically between the moon and Venus. I'm not going to tell you today anything. There's no should here. It's all invitation. It's you to discover this through your direct experience of what is true for you. So this is all for consideration. And I love that the word consider means with the stars. Consider. That's the root of that word. Consideration, with that openness, with that willingness to engage. And the opposite of that is disaster, disaster, against the stars. So we are meant to be not only sourcing from our tangible reality, but also from this cosmic wisdom that is so vast. And so here we go, here we go. Oh, yeah, thank you. Someone was saying motherhood. How could I leave that out? So much of this is about motherhood. Yes, the experience of being a woman and birthing, not just cycling, but actually conceiving the baby and having the baby. Thank you, whoever wrote that. Yeah, of course. And we'll see that here too. Yeah, Aurora, thank you. You're so full of wisdom. I love that you always chime in like that. So today is March 25th, 2021, and we are at a Venus start point that's going to be happening later tonight, just a few moments before midnight here in Pacific Standard Time. We just switched back from daylight time. And if anyone needs a converter, you can just Google World Time Converter and just plug in your time and get your time. I've been using that a lot as we begin to navigate these global communities. So I am going to share screen with you, and we will begin here. And then I think what I'll do, because I have a tendency to get a little distracted with questions, we'll have time at the end for questions. And if I don't catch your question, just ask it again at the end. So let me see, let me find this presentation that I want to share with you. There it is. Okay, can everyone see that okay? So we're here in this Venus and Aries star point. I could have written March 25th, 2021, but that date will come in. The resurrection of fierce love feels like the mantra here. And so as we drop into this space, as we come together, I'm going to ask if you have a candle, because this is so much about fire, Aries fire. If you have a candle, to go ahead and light it. And I got to grab mine. just so you can see the flame, just so you can be in a direct relationship with fire as we move through this Venus star point time that is this portal for wisdom to come forth. And got my fire here. And it's really a matter of connecting with these elements that make up the whole universe and that make up us, that we can receive instruction directly from nature. And this is the importance of our feminine principle. Our bodies are nature. Our bodies are an expression of that feminine principle. No matter what, the body itself, no matter what body we have, what sex that is. And so to take a moment, lighting the fire, I burnt a little bit of sage here. If you have something that you like to burn, you can light that, and you can breathe in that smell. Breathe in that purification. And Venus is right with the sun. So in Aries, a fire sign with the sun, fire. And then I also asked if you had a bowl of water. So if you have a bowl of water and you want to be in this elemental relationship, you can take that water and put it in front of you. And this represents the feminine principle. So the fire is the masculine principle. Venus is in Aries, fire sign ruled by Mars, masculine sign. She's next to the sun, masculine energy, but she's still very feminine. That doesn't change her femininity. That doesn't change that she is about the heart. And then the water represents the feminine nature. And this is Venus unseen in the underworld, in the water time, in her deepest retreat, in union with her love. So if you have water and you want to play, you can sprinkle a little water on top of your head and just like in your field, in your aura, you can do a little water purification and experience this water. Yeah, maybe you want to put it on your face. Maybe you want to touch. And so we're going to do a little tapping here. We're going to do a little touch. We're going to come into the body, wherever you've been, whatever you did to come. We're going to come in and just honor this vessel for a moment before we go more to the head. So if you want to let your arms come online here, tapping down your arms, tapping into your face gently, tapping down your throat, making a sound, whatever sound you'd like to make. Waking up your thymus gland. Fire is about expression. And then letting that come to a close and bringing your hand down and onto your belly. And if you want to do a circle of your belly in the direction of your digestion, which is clockwise from looking up, if that makes sense. Round, and then tapping with your hips and including your legs. This time is very much about our rooting to the earth. Venus in the underworld, unseen for 60 to about 100 days, is about us remembering the place where we connect to the earth, remembering that we come from the earth, we'll go back to the earth, and that our bodies can really stay connected even as we are in our consciousness of the mental, we can stay connected in our bodies. So just finishing whatever tapping, I like to brush down the legs and just noticing if you feel more here in any way. And then coming into some kind of movement. I like to rock. And noticing your jaw as you're doing that, letting it stay soft, soft, soft. Ah, 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 yeah. And letting your body move. This is the spine moving, gently in whatever way feels good. Really inviting all of you to be here, to bring all of you. This is such a deep time, and to welcome each part of you to come witness, to come learn, to receive, to share, as you'll have a chance later to share in the chat, bringing all of you here. And as I prepared for this time, and if you have a stone or a crystal that you want to hold or have in your grounding, in your field for grounding during this time, it can be very beautiful. I got this crystal recently in Shasta, and so that's been carrying with me. So it can be nice if you have that nearby, if that's easy. So I pulled a card for our time together for this magnificent sacred day from Megan Watterson's Divine Feminine Oracle guidebook. I really appreciate her work on the resurrection of the divine, knowing that we can have these archetypes of the divine feminine, we can have these goddesses, we can have these inspirations, but ultimately it's within us. Our wisdom was within us, and that we have our own archetype. When we know our Venus sign, and we know what phase she was when we were born, and we know all of the qualities of her, we actually can paint a picture and create an archetype from that becomes our exalted feminine, that becomes our own inner goddess. So for this particular day, I chose Sekhmet, and that's of course going to be backwards. And she is described as the Red Lady. The mantra is, I am pure strength. I honor my anger by giving voice to it. How perfect is that for Venus and Aries? So just want to read here a little bit to bring in this energy, because this is very much about using that vital energy of our rage, of our no, of our broken heart, of our discontent, using that fuel creatively so that we can bring more of our gifts at this powerful time, so that we can bring the gifts that no one but us can bring. And so it's calling to that part of us that we are welcome. We are all welcome, and we're welcome to come forth in our fullness and in honor of those we love. So it's really a change in the fire of anger has been used aggressively, and this is part of the transmutation right now. And so she writes here, holy rage, sacred anger, and positive aggression. These states of being are crucial aspects of the divine feminine. It's the female power that ends wars, that brings home missing children, that seeks justice for the earth and for those who can't defend themselves. The artist and mystic William Blake writes, the voice of honest indignation is the voice of God. The voice of honest indignation is the voice of God. And so this is what we're getting a glimpse of right now. And if you can all mute, I hear someone coming off mute, and I don't think I can mute you without coming off here. If you hear that sound and you could mute yourself, that would be so helpful. You're hearing me. Okay. Hang on. So we're asking to be intimate with our wounding right now. Oh, they might have. In order to bring forth something new. First, the intimacy with the wounding of separation, the wounding of rejection, and then we're bringing forth the new. So this is the movement here today. I'm going to reshare with you. Hang on. Sometimes this part's a little tricky to get all the screens. I have a lot of screens open. I've been geeking out and getting ready. And Hopefully it'll track that screen. I don't know if that's the one. Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, so that is our invocation. Really here is honoring the fire, honoring the water, honoring our own heart, our own body. And the intention with the Sekhmet card is, I am pure strength. I honor my anger by giving voice to it. And so this Aries energy of I am, I mean, look at this beautiful woman. She's she's pointing up. She's getting ready to resurrect from the fires of the Aries fires of the underworld. And it is said that, when people are surveyed about their worst fear more than death is public speaking, is being seen, being heard, showing up and expressing. And so, this is something that has been wounded in so many of us. And this is the opportunity that we have to become intimate with the painful place, receive a tremendous amount of healing, and then re-arise in this rebirth and in this new expression of ourselves, living more authentically in our truth and less self-consciously. Aries is not self-conscious. Aries is like that child energy. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It's not looking over his shoulder and going, oh, geez, I wonder what they're going to think of me. And, oh, what about that? That's probably more the Libra, the polarity of Aries is Libra, the opposite. Aries just, first sign, just does, initiates, goes for it. And so I would say, for most of us, visionaries of heart, humans that have been on the path of our own growth, we could use, likely most of us could use at least an extra dose of that, being willing to show up as we are and not caring so much what other people think, not shrinking. Okay, so here we are. We're in this beautiful solar system, and in astrology, just to drop you into this moment of the Venus cycle, I wanted to start with the solar system, which is of course part of a galaxy and much larger system, but we're working with these systems, and each one of these planets represents something within our mind, body, psyche. It's pretty amazing. And so we're going to be focusing today on the sun at center. It's only been 400 years or something since, and my dates might be off, so please feel free to correct in the chat, but that it was radical to put forth that the sun was the center of our solar system. That discovery, that discovery, Galileo was completely shot down and exiled, and he became, pushed out of the mainstream community that was in the right and that knew what was right and what was happening. And this is a time for those that have been marginalized, who have the edgy ideas, who have, the ideas that everyone is saying that can't be true, that actually there's a genius in this time. And so I've been thinking about that a lot. And who are the geniuses of our time that were putting forth their wisdom before their time, and they were told you're crazy or you're wrong, or they were exiled or excommunicated or whatever the punishment was, because their wisdom was outside of the scope. So the sun at center, in the way that I hold it for astrology, is source. It's our fuel, it's our energy. So whatever sign the sun was in when we were born, that's what lights us up. And then, of course, the closest planet to the sun is Mercury, which represents the mind. And it's got this very intimate relationship between the sun and our beautiful planet, the Earth. The second planet is Venus, and she represents the heart, the feminine wisdom, our ability to connect, to attune, to feel into another. And then on the other side, the first planet on the other side of Earth, which of course over here is, they're not right next to Earth, but in this plane, in these rings, is Mars. And that's the masculine desire to go forth, to seek. So Venus is to connect, Mars is to seek. and to be independent and to move out. Venus is to move in. And we need both of those in our being. Us as earthlings need both of those impulses, and we need both of those needs met when we're very, very young. The energy right now is very much about visiting our oldest wounds. And what the way that we didn't get our need to connect met as a little one or an infant, it's another layer of healing around that. The place where we didn't get to have our independence, we didn't get to assert that wound is also available for healing, because we have this fusion with Venus, the sign of relating, in Mars's sign Aries, and also with Chiron, the wounded healer there. So we're going to be focusing on Venus and the sun and their cycle together, their synodic cycle. That's what that's called. And that's when Venus meets sun, it creates a 19-month cycle. So I wanted to just briefly compare this to the moon cycle, because the moon is a satellite of the Earth and is continuously cycling Earth. And so it's a good comparison, because most of us have worked with the moon cycle. And the moon cycle is about 29 days. And of course, because it's a satellite, it is constellating us. And so it starts out as the new moon. And I should have put the sun here. It's because the new moon cannot be seen because the sun's light is here. I actually just like whipped this out right before this presentation. I was on Canva, making this graphic. So the sun washes out the moon. We can't see the moon. And then as the moon moves into first quarter, we get that half of it is shaded and half of it is illuminated by the sun's light, reflecting the sun's light. And then at full moon, if the sun is here, it's fully reflecting the sunlight from Earth's perspective. And then as it wanes into last quarter moon, we can see the other half of it. And then it comes back into new. So I wanted to make a graphic that was similar to what we're going to look at with the Venus cycle. And oops, I forgot to take this off. So the Venus 19-month cycle, the orientation is a little bit different, as you just saw in that graphic, because the moon is going around us and tucking us in this 29 days. And it's very present. It has to do with timing and cycles. And we can really visually see it very intimately. And it's about our emotional safety. And our emotional safety isn't always serving us. It's about our stories, our lineage, our history. And we need that. We need some level of emotional safety, but it also can be a prison when we stay in our sameness. We stay safe by staying in what is familiar. And so this is what the moon represents. And that's why we need to nourish the moon and feel emotionally safe enough for the Venus energy, which is about evolutionary feminine. She also has 4 phases, and she's in a 19-month cycle. And apologies, just ignore that Venus star point. That was an assignment for the class that I'm teaching. But if we were going to say Venus star point currently, it would be that she's about to connect with the Aries star point about halfway through her cycle. So we'll see that in a moment. So in her very first beginning, similar to the new moon, not exactly the same, she is between Earth and Sun, the closest to the Earth. And this is the transmission, because she's so close to Earth. She's like our sister. She's like our wise sister reflecting back to us. The Earth is feminine, so subjective. And it's like having that wise friend who reflects back to you something that you just couldn't see. You were so in it. You couldn't even know, what exactly was going on, because you were so deeply in it. It's like the water you were swimming in. What water? What do you mean water? So it's like that reflection, that space, that objectivity is something that helps us to grow. And this is the beauty of relating. And so Venus is this wise sister. If the sun is here and she's halfway in between, or right in between Earth and Sun, this is the beginning of her phase. And I call that reset phase, when she is invisible. So not in the underworld, but in reset. She's going from one cycle to the next. She's going from evening sky to morning sky. And she begins at this halfway point where she meets the sun. And then she will rise as morning star after she gets past this point of invisibility. She rises and we can see her as morning star. This is a huge moment. And some people count the Venus cycle here when she rises. Her heliacal rise is when they say, okay, that's when the cycle begins. I believe it begins, for me, it feels right that it begins at the inception. As always, there's multiple ways to look at these things, and I honor all, but this is what I found to be true, that inception is a powerful moment that will ripple for 19 months. So she's in the morning sky and travels for about, she's about 9.5 months as a morning star, and meets the moon for between 5 and 7 times in the morning sky, which I don't have the moon on here, but it's good to know that the Venus cycle includes the moon. And then she sets as the morning star, and she goes into the underworld phase for 60 to 98 days. And this is where we are now. So this is a Venus star point at the beginning, and this is another Venus star point about halfway through, when she is behind the sun in the underworld, in the depths. That's why I played those two songs when you were coming in, the song about the sunlight that was very uplifting, and then that more watery depth of that surrender energy. And I'll post both of those songs when I send out this replay, and if you're in the group, I'll post them. So this is where we're at this potent moment right here in the underworld, and Venus is behind the sun in this divine union, but totally different than when she began. And then she will rise as evening star around May 15th for this current cycle, and she'll travel up into the evening sky. She'll meet the moon between 5 and 7 times that we can see visibly. I mean, she's meeting the moon in the underworld, we just cannot see. And then she will complete, she'll be at her highest, her brightest, and then she will go retrograde, and she will start to dissolve back into the fabric of the cosmos energetically, and begin to transform into her next cycle. And she'll come here and be invisible, too close for us to see her. And so this Venus cycle, as you can see, has a similar flow as the moon cycle. There's the bold, the like seed that's planted. There's the building towards, this isn't exactly like a full moon, but in a sense, something is coming to fruition now that was planted on June 3rd, 2020 in our hearts. So it is a bit different, but there are also some similarities that I think helps to understand this Venus cycle, because a lot of people don't know about the Venus cycle. So if we could see this, or if we can imagine this is Venus in between the sun and earth. And this was one of those rare moments when she was visible, 2004 and 2012, which were actually in the same sign as she is in this current cycle. In June 3rd, 2020, she began her cycle in Gemini, as she did in 2012, as she did in 2004. And so there's something here about culture making and the change of culture and the transformation of culture. And that the solar feminine, there was a number of different indigenous people and Mayans that were tracking this, and were saying, now is the time for the female nation to rise. Now is the time for this feminine wisdom to come forth. And they specifically named women. They specifically said women. And when Venus crossed the face of the sun in 2012, of course, that was the end of the Mayan calendar. That solstice 6 months later there's a lot of energy, if you were in spiritual circles, about what does that mean? What is this transformation? The Mayan calendar appeared to end. And I had a friend who went down to the Maya lands, and they did ceremony on that December solstice, 6 months after Venus crossed the face of the sun visibly. And the medicine men gathered all of the sacred objects, and they presented them to the elder women, to the medicine women, and they said, now it's your turn. Now you show us. This is the story that I heard from that. It was very powerful. And so Venus's cycles, this amazing photographer, which, oh, no, it's so dim I can't read his name, but I'll put his name again in the information. He took pictures of the Venus over 19 months. So if we could actually see Venus, we could see her phases. She changes shape. This is Venus. This is not the moon. This is the Venus cycle. And so here's that image again. And I would just say, that this mirrors the heroine's journey. That is the quest here, the quest for living an authentic life, for living a powerful life. And so just to look at that through this lens, when she meets the sun, there's a seed intention that is planted around whatever the themes are for that sign. So right now we're in the Venus and Gemini cycle from June 3rd. And so we know that openness, curiosity, kind of a flexibility, a sense of playfulness, even if the world is intense, that there's an understanding of somewhat of the game of it, the game of life. And there's a willingness to stay open to divergent perspectives, even while knowing our own truth. So that's kind of the energetic theme. We'll go more into that. Then in the morning star, she hears the call. That's when the young feminine, and this connects back to our oldest story, the descent of Inanna, the most ancient myth that we have that's written. And that morning star Venus is considered a warrior. She's considered a fighter. She's considered intense, bold, passionate, a queen with absolute power that grows everything on the earth and basically is responsible for the continuation of life, can do anything she wants. And she decides in this journey, she hears the call and she decides to go to the underworld to see her sister, who's in a grieving process because she's lost her husband. But no one comes back from the underworld alive. So this is truly an impossible decision. But she's doing it anyway, because she's going to do whatever she wants, because she's the queen of heaven. And so it's like that kind of powerful, young, feminine energy we don't have a lot of examples of in our culture. But this is her in Morning Star. And then after she gets past her brightest, she starts to meet the obstacles. Just like anytime, any entrepreneur, any visionary, any artist, we have the vision, we hear the call, and then we actually go to implement. Oh, it's not going to be that way. Oh, wait, that was over budget. Oh, wait, that person didn't show up. Okay, wait, this is going to have to change. Oh, wait, this isn't actually as true to me as I thought it was. I need to adjust. So this whole Morning Star journey is her surrendering what is no longer true in order to discover more of her essence and more of her that can never be taken. It's a falling away. And then she enters the underworld here when she goes invisible behind the sun and meets her sister. And in the ancient myth, she is killed by her sister. I'm currently in a process of reimagining that myth. But in the ancient myth, in the written story, she's killed by her sister and she is stuck. But luckily, she's told her ally, Ninshurber, if I'm not back in 3 days, get help. And so again, this theme of relationship, allies, helpers, not doing it alone. If she was all alone, she would have stayed dead in the underworld. So she gets help. And I'm not going to go through that whole story now, but it's through her allyship and it's through the power of empathy and presencing of this very volatile force of Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, her sister, the queen of destruction. If Inanna is the queen of life, Ereshkigal is the queen of destruction. And through empathizing with her in her pain, that ultimately Inanna is freed and is resurrected and comes back to life. So this is the heart of what we're in now. And what's happening right now, a few minutes before midnight, is Venus is crossing over from this 9.5 month journey where she's in front of the sun. She's crossing over to be on the other side of the sun. And we're going to look at that in the chart in a moment. So if we just split this into 2 cycles, you can see, Venus is before the sun or after the sun to know what phase she was in when you were born. So she's crossing over, and that's the big moment. That's the big portal moment tonight. And I would highly encourage everyone to sit and be with that and receive and drop in deep, deep, deep into your belly wisdom. And then once she is resurrected and realizes she has life, she gets to come out of the underworld, and she does it. She's coming up. And then this whole evening star rise is her receiving back everything that she gave up. And in the story of Inanna, she's actually giving up her crown and her jewels, and she's actually physically giving up these objects as she goes into the underworld. And then in the myth, she receives them back. So it's like her attachment to the physical world has changed through this empowerment, through this suffering time in the underworld. And she rises and she begins to demonstrate her wisdom, and her compassion is no longer as theoretical as it once was. You know, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, I totally understand that suffering. It's another thing, whoa, to have completely lived through the suffering yourself. It changes everything, right? It's now a lived experience. So she's a wiser queen. She's a wiser ruler. And she keeps moving up here until she's at the very top of her peak of her cycle. She's highest and brightest. She's luminous. She's amazing if you've seen her in this part of her cycle. And she's queen of heaven and earth. She's really integrated the suffering of the underworld with the beauty of life, which is very much, you know, a theme that we're in right now. To live is to suffer. To live is to experience pain. That is actually something that unites all of us, is that we suffer, we love, we suffer, and we want beauty, and we move towards beauty, or most of us move towards beauty, and that gets hindered, and that there's obstacles and challenges, and it's like, what do we do with that? That's what Venus and Aries is asking us. What do we do with that? And so after, you know, she has been on this journey, she's really in this peak part of her wisdom and her maturity. So this evening star is the mature feminine, whereas the morning star is the young, untested, bold feminine, the heroine's journey. And then, of course, she starts all over, and it begins again, 19 months. If you begin to sync with Venus, you will find incredible support in deepening into yourself again and again and again, connecting to the sign that she starts in. So these two signs, the sign that she meets the sun on this side and the sign that she meets the sun on this side, are both star points, and they're both important themes to know what's going to be happening. This was a little animation that I made that got a little wild here, because it was animated and then it now it's just static. But so Venus meets the sun at the beginning of her cycle. This is called an interior conjunction star point. This is a star point. And she's invisible until she gets to this line here. And that's in reset phase that she begins. And then she goes through her whole morning star. And then this is the second star point, which we're at now. It's about halfway through her 19-month cycle. It's called an exterior conjunction. And this is the second star point. So again, we have this image to help us understand what's happening. And I made this all like sexy and union and love and sparkles. I was like, that's Venus and the sun. They're having like a delicious intimacy, a delicious transmission, but unseen and deep and internal. This is union with source within. This is the secret marriage. This is not necessarily an external event. And then this is a much more complicated map that is particular to this Venus and Gemini cycle, that has all of the dates that she meets the moon in the cycle, which is what I call the new Venus portal. So I sync with that instead of the new moon. And you will all receive this as a gift, a PDF gift. So you can track from here, number 7, to the end of the cycle, which will end in January 7th, 2022. And so you'll all receive that if you wish to dive in deeper. And you're all invited to join the quest for understanding the Venus cycle more. So in 19 months, if we divide that in half, that's 9.5 months twice. It's 2 human gestation cycles. So the person that was saying about motherhood, we're birthing ourselves here. We're birthing our deepest soul purpose, and then we're resurrecting a more authentic version. There's a part 1 and a part 2. So when Venus met Sun at, oops, I didn't finish this, at 13 degrees Gemini, that's what that's supposed to say. The Gemini energy is really about discovering new ways of learning that integrate our right and left brain, logic and intuition, body and mind, in order to create a new culture. The invitation is to discover new ways of relating, being relaxed and curious in this not knowing that we're all in now. World as we knew it is sunsetting, and we don't yet know what will be born. And so, how do we show up and engage? And I would say, especially in virtual reality, we don't see a lot of this. And with the North Node, our collective evolution in Gemini as well, there is a strong invitation for us to show up in openness. Even if we know our truth, it doesn't mean that we're changing what we feel is true, but to honor others without dehumanizing them, without making them wrong, without shaming them and blaming them, because that's just bringing the whole dominator culture with us and saying, okay, now you're the enemy and we're the good ones, and we're going to play out the same story. So there's something here, especially around virtual reality. I have seen so much outrageous behavior this last year on the internet and in people in conversations where there's just an instant ability to disconnect because we don't have the body language that helps us to go, oh, well, there's a person there like me that I can empathize with, and they have a different view. There's not the tone of voice. There's none of that. So this would be going forward, just to emphasize that the impact that we have on virtual reality is often can be just as powerful as when we meet someone in person. I mean, I know someone who had a very difficult exchange in an internet situation here, on a community board, and she had to go connect with her therapist after. It was very difficult for her to be attacked in that way. And so this is what's happening as we shake out what we're not going to do anymore. And this is what Venus in Aries is asking us. What are we going to go forth with? What is going to be our culture that we're going to create as we move into the age of Aquarius? Because I truly believe this Venus medicine, especially Venus in Aries, is asking us to rebirth the Venus wisdom and bring that with us. So this is what that whole experience that I just showed you, that whole example in the chart, this is what it looks like on an astrology chart. This is when she began. She met the sun in her interior conjunction. Her motion is retrograde, which in this program shows as red. And so if you have a retrograde Venus, you are either born in evening star, the very end of evening star, when she went retrograde, or in her invisible reset, or in early morning star. That's a very small segment of the 19-month cycle. So if you have a Venus retrograde, that's going to give you a clue where in the cycle you're born. And this is the inception. And then also Venus and Sun are going to be very close together, right? And so this was June 3rd, 144, 13 degrees Gemini was when this cycle began. And then now here we are. See how they look the same? From a chart, you can't tell if she's in front of the sun, behind the sun. It looks the same on the chart. This is the star point that we're at right now. That will be exact 11:58 p.m. Pacific time. She is in forward motion. She's always in retrograde when she begins her cycle, but she's in forward motion and she's in the underworld phase, and she's halfway through this 19-month cycle. And some astrologers count these two star points as separate cycles. I don't. I see that 19 months as being a continuous flow because of the inception, like the new moon, and then this being more like what we would experience the full moon. And it feels to me more like a complete 19-month experience. So there's these descriptions, which I will again send out to you with your maps about the different phases. And I also have a cheat sheet that I'll send you of how to try to figure out which phase you're in if you don't know. But it's really, going back to that myth, connecting it with Inanna, and the reset being more of the bridge maker, and able to help and assist with transitions, able to help with bridging this and that, be able to hold different perspectives and to see things from a different way. Whereas morning star, again, is that initiator, trailblazer, young, bold, trying things, making mistakes, trying something else, making mistakes. And she needs that in order to grow. She needs that in order to know her own heart. And then underworld is in that deep retreat space. She's often healer, medicine person, therapist, and often she's had a lot of underworld experiences, and she knows how to help those in the underworld to not forget about the topside world, not to get lost. That is the trauma loop of underworld, is not able to get out of that trauma loop and forget that there is once again the topside world to return to. We don't want to get stuck there. And so that's often for people that have underworld phase, that's very native to them, that kind of deep underworld healing place. And then evening star phase is that compassionate feminine, really the mature feminine who's integrated a lot of those compulsory morning star behaviors and is really centered in serving others and demonstrating her wisdom. So she needs a lot of reflection. She needs a lot of social engagement and social reflection. And she often is a teacher and, is bringing that wisdom in some way. And there's none of these are better or worse. Like the morning star Venus, that initiator, she's really, really important. And she's sacredly self-centered. She needs to be first. So to know that about yourself is very important, because I think the evening star phase tends to be how we think of the ideal woman, right? But we're all different. And so the way that we're going to connect with our deepest heart is going to be different. For some reason, I'm showing you that again. I don't know why. Okay, so these points where she begins, these Venus star points change. And there's always 5 different points that are being touched off in 8 years. 1.6 years is the Venus cycle. And so right now, now that you understand that the direct motion is an underworld star point and the forward motion is a reset star point, you can see that we right here are at this March 25th, 2021, 5 degrees direct, because she's in the underworld. But if you think back to March 25th of 2017, she was starting her cycle in Aries. And think about your life then. You may have made some bold moves, and think about what was happening in the world then. it was really, the movie Wonder Woman came out during that cycle. It was really this breathing life into the heroine, this. And again, Aries has a connection with the underworld. You could probably feel that, right? I mean, excuse me, not the underworld, the morning star. That young, bold energy is very similar to morning star Venus. So, we're in this star point now, and we are we're in this point of the direct halfway across the cycle star point in Aries, but we came from the Gemini cycle. That's where this began. And I included more of the Gemini than any other star points because these star points were so significant when Venus was visibly crossing the face of the sun. So good reflection to go back to June 8th, 2004, June 5th, 2012, and then most especially for this current cycle, June 3rd, 2020. All of these Gemini star points were inviting us into some transformation, and especially, the star points that happened after she was visible in 2004, 2012. Now it's like we had to really learn, what does it mean to resurrect the feminine? What does it mean to really bring that forth? It doesn't necessarily mean what we thought it meant. That first wave of feminism had a lot of, that's, my mother was from that time, and really fighting for both, equality in pay and equality, but also fighting for independence. And now there's a whole rebalancing happening about, wait a second, is this what we really want, to have both parents working endlessly? And what happens to the children? And, there's a whole reconfiguration of what does it mean for our feminine nature to really be honored fully. And how do we liberate to have more choice to follow our heart's desire, whether that's having children, not having children. But this whole consideration of it, I mean, think about what has moved through since 2012, as far as the images, as far as the possibilities, as far as the archetypes of what does it mean to be divine feminine, sacred feminine, goddess energy. Think about social media. 2004, Facebook was seeded. 2012, Facebook blew up. Social media, the way that we connect virtually, is very much connected to the Venus cycle. And I would say, in a way, June 2020, we're seeing the death of Facebook. We're seeing so many people leave Facebook for other platforms because it's not just about connecting, but now there's all these privacy issues and tracking and data. It's like, well, maybe we don't want that, right? But very interesting to see these themes. So those would be very good contemplations for you. And if you want to take a few moments right now and just write down what was moving through for you in summer of 2020, moving through your heart. What was moving through your heart? Was there anything that was seeded? Was there any relationship ending? Was there any relationship beginning? Was there anything you were aching about, longing for? I'm going to just give you a few moments to do that. Okay, just taking a minute more. I was just checking the chat. Wow, there's a lot of chat there. I will come back to that. Oops, that didn't work. So taking a breath, if you wish, taking a sip of water, if you wish, doing a little movement, if you wish. It's been a lot of head. And now we're going to drop more into the meaning of what does this mean? What does this mean? And if you know your Venus phase and you want to put that in the notes, if you know if you're reset, if you know if you're morning star, underworld, or evening star in your sign, so I am a Venus star point began in Scorpio. My Venus sign is in Scorpio and I'm morning star, right? Because she hadn't separated, she hadn't switched signs yet. And so she was still in Scorpio. So if you're born close to that morning star point, it might be that your Venus star point is the same as your Venus sign. So think of the Venus cycle, the 19-month cycle, as being the book, this overarching feminine essence that is inviting you into your evolution. Venus is the evolutionary feminine, being on the edge, not knowing, going behind the sun. That's very different than the moon, which we can always see and is tucking us in and circling us. Venus is going behind the sun, that risking of that, so we will take on the qualities when we're really in alignment with our feminine essence. We will take on the qualities that it's like it becomes a character, or I call it an avatar. And so if you know those, feel free to share them with each other, because it's pretty fun to see what they are and how many different variations there are. I feel like in the age of Aquarius, I keep getting the sense that we do not so much, I mean, it's wonderful to have the archetypes and it's like we are the archetypes. It's this individual, unique who we are. So, it's wonderful to have cards like this and Sekhmet, and yet we each have our own archetype that we could create a card deck, for each of you that was your Venus avatar, and this exalted feminine that, we might not live in, completely in alignment with it all the time, but we know what it is. We know what it feels like. It's like bookmark that, because we have all these other parts, just like I showed the whole solar system. We have our mind, we have our will, we have our, emotional safety. Where are you coming from? What's first? And when we put Venus first, I call that Venus wisdom, because the heart can hold it all. The heart can hold all of these other parts. The heart can hold all of it. Heart can hold the head, so we bring the head into the heart. We drop the heart into the womb. Feels like that's the underworld, starting off with the head, moving into the heart, moving down into the womb, and then rising from the womb back to the heart, and then beginning to allow the heart's impulse to be what leads, instead of, oh, I should, and oh, what about, and oh, my history. The head is full of our programming, history, and conditioning. Okay. Now I've lost my little presentation because I stopped sharing. That was probably not a good idea. There's that. Oh, there it is. Okay. I don't think you can see it though. There we go. Okay. This is good. All right. And we will probably go for 15 more minutes of the presentation, and then I'll open it up if people want to have questions. So if we're looking at Venus and Aries at this particular star point, this is our invitation. This is our sacred invitation to embody feminine wisdom for the next 9.5 months. We're receiving it through our personal Venus. So if you know your personal Venus, that's how you're receiving it. So I'm receiving it through deep transformative water, no matter what, right? But the invitation is with Aries, it's this fire initiating masculine sign. It's that first sign of the zodiac where all life begins. And we're moving from Pisces into Aries. And so we're moving from that watery depths of understanding everyone through suffering and empathy and compassion into this me, I am. And we're being asked to honor our fire and our sacred selfishness while being aware of other. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So it's interesting because Aries is ruled by Mars, and the opposite polarity, Libra, which is all about harmony and knowing what other wants and attuning to other and having that sacred reflection, is ruled by Venus. So we get this, this infusion with with Venus in Aries that is like, it's kind of like that's its own sacred marriage of masculine and feminine, that energy of that bold feminine. And so, there we go. So that I am, how can we show up and truly be who we are authentically, truthfully? And so Venus in Aries, if you have this natally in your chart, or just this energetic, is inviting us to express our love boldly, passionately, impulsively. And it's this energy that wants to have new experiences. And it's a self-assertion, it's the pioneer, it's the rebel, and this valuing of independence and initiative, and needing to move the energy through the body, and needing to move our feelings, especially that rage, channeling that sacred rage into what our vision is right now. Whatever vision you captured at the last turn of the wheel, the December solstice, the beginning of the age of Aquarius, now it's like this fire is going to come help move that forward, because Aquarius is very cool. It's very detached. Aries is not detached. It's pure heat. So you're adding pure heat into that vision. How are you going to move forward? And so I just happened to be listening to Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed. And I love this quote: "We weren't born distrusting and fearing ourselves. That was part of our taming. We were taught to believe that who we are in our natural state is bad and dangerous. They convinced us to be afraid of ourselves. So we do not honor our own bodies, curiosity, hunger, judgment, experience, or ambition. Instead, we lock away our true selves. Women who are best at this disappearing act earn the highest praise. She is so selfish. Can you imagine? The epitome of womanhood is to lose oneself completely. That is the end goal of every patriarchal culture, because a very effective way to control women is to convince women to control themselves. So I translate that when we're talking about the feminine principle. Of course, this principle has been totally suppressed in men too. Don't cry, don't be emotional, don't be feeling, and so they're in a different relationship with bringing those two into balance in themselves, while being in a in a demographic that also has privileges. And just so we're all in this balance of ways that we have privileges and ways that we've suffered. There's no one gets off without both of those dynamics. So I just love that quote. And I was like, how did I come to read this book right now? I feel like she's got these quotes are exactly this moment. And this is the truth seeking that we're unveiling right now. We're unveiling in this underworld. So you're here to decide if your life, relationships, and world are true and beautiful enough for you. And if they are not, and you dare to admit they are not, you must decide if you have the guts, the right, perhaps even the duty to burn to the ground that which is not true and beautiful enough, and get started building what is. So this is what we're burning down right now. What is not true about your life? The heartbreak is the key now to understand what's not working for the new creation to emerge. What heartbreak is moving through? What is breaking your heart now, especially this last year? Like if you found out, that your life was going to end before you got to fulfill something that has not yet been fulfilled, you got to bring something into creation that has not been created, what would be that regret on your deathbed? That's the moment when we're realizing, oh, this life is done, that often we have the insight looking back to go, oh, why didn't I take that risk? Why didn't I make that move? So it's kind of like the fire of this is asking us to find that truth now. So this is important too with the energy of Aries. There's a lot that's been done in this in the spirit of revolution to change things, and taking a stand. Sometimes it does mean for different movements. It has meant showing up physically and being in kind of in a physical act to change things. So whether that's nonviolent protest or civil disobedience, or it's kind of like this. It's this question of, what would you give everything to change? What would you give everything to defend? This is the Aries, kind of the Aries question. Like, what is so precious to you that you would give it all? You would risk everything. That's the clue to the battle that is the most important to you. And it doesn't mean that you're going to do that, but it points in a direction. And for people that have children, that's their children, or it's some value that's really important to them, some freedom, something that is so precious that they don't want to go into the future. This is what inspires people to go into war. They feel so, I mean, not everyone, of course, there's many dynamics, but that's the spirit of the warrior. Like, this is so important to me that I would risk my life. So that's kind of the edge that we're on right now. But it feels like, and I'm going to read this rebellion quote first, and I'm going to say a little more about that. So she writes in this book, rebellion is as much of a cage as obedience is. They both mean living in reaction to someone else's way instead of forging your own. Freedom is not being for or against an ideal, but creating your own existence from scratch. So this Aries rebellion energy and this Aquarius rebellion energy, it's really like, it feels like the battle and the revolution is about consciousness. It's not necessarily about going out there and getting on the street. And it might be, I mean, that might be your path. I'm not saying that's not, I don't know what is right for anyone, but it's really living from your deepest truth and taking a stand from that every day. in some way. That's more the kind of rebellion to take a stand for who you are, the rebellion to take a stand for what you love. I'm not going to read that one. Oh, was that it? Okay. I thought I had one more, but that's what we got. But that's a lot, that's a lot to contemplate, and that's a lot to sit with. And I would encourage you to sit tonight, in your time frame, if you can, that matches this time that Venus is meeting exactly with Sun. These exact points are often very, very potent portals for change. And to write, to sit until you feel the heartbreak, to sit until you sink into, what in your life you can risk for, you can grieve, that it hasn't come into being, and that it's this place that is a place where your life is not where it's most beautiful to you, it's most vibrant to you. And to write that down, and to take that piece of paper and to light it on fire. If you want to do a ceremony tonight, to take the paper where you've written that heartbreak and to burn it, to let it burn. And as it burns, to really visualize you burning through and purifying and getting into your truth. And then taking the ashes and putting them in the water, bringing them back to the feminine, bringing them back to that underworld transmutation. And then taking that out onto the land and pouring that out somewhere, maybe with a prayer or a sound or a song, expressing yourself in some way, using your voice. It's a very powerful movement of actions if you choose to do that, if that feels authentic for you or interesting for you. But Chiron, the wounded healer, maybe I'll just put I'll put the link to the article and then you can grab it. But there's the wounded healer is a very, very important part of this Venus star point. And the wounded healer is about being rejected, because the myth of Chiron from Greece is that Chiron is the offspring of Saturn, and his affair with a woman, not an affair, it's actually a violation. I mean, a lot of those Greek myths are very violating, so she's violated by him. And when Chiron is born, he ends up being a centaur, a half human, half horse. And his mother is totally disgusted by him. It's a very difficult birth. And it's like she's repulsed by him and she rejects him. So he has that early wounding of rejection. And even though a lot of the centaurs in that time, in that mythology, were very coarse and very rough, and he wasn't. He was raised to learn about the arts, to learn about medicine. He became very cultured and sophisticated in healing and connecting. And then towards the end of his life, he was accidentally wounded by an arrow from one of his students that had some poison in it. And because he's half mortal, he's unable to die. Because he's half human, he can suffer continuously. And so he's in this suffering continuously, in this wound that cannot be healed. And so that Chiron in Aries has been a whole initiation this last year that had to do, it's been going for a while, but Mars was there, the sacred masculine principle. And so that was really a chance for the masculine principle to turn away from an aggressive warrior, burn it down, destructive mode into protector, into becoming a protector of life, of beauty, of the feminine principle itself. And so this is what we've lived through. That was a 6-month process of Mars being in Aries. Usually it's in a sign for a week, and was in a sign he was in this home sign of Aries for a whole 6 months. So we really had an initiation into learning how to be protector. And then the other thing that's just magnificent about today is that Mars is at that 13 degrees Gemini point that Venus started her cycle. So it's like he's been initiated into being protector, and he's showing up into the same spot where she started this cycle on June 3rd. He's at 13 degrees today, right with the North Node, which is this huge collective invitation to find our openness, no matter how contracted life gets, to find the magic, no matter how difficult things seem and how dire things seem, to remember that there's more going on than we can understand or see. And so that feels like Mars really showing up and being like, okay, how can I serve? How can I serve and protect the feminine principle here as we recreate culture? So in this Chiron article that I'm going to place there momentarily, and I'll put it in the Facebook group too, there's a Rumi quote here that says, Rumi was a Persian poet. You probably all know who Rumi is, but very much articulates this Chiron energy. And he writes, "Your doctor must have a broken leg to doctor. Your defects are the way that glory gets manifested. Whoever sees clearly what's diseased in himself begins to gallop on the way. Don't turn your head. Keep looking at the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you. Don't turn your head. Keep looking at the bandaged place. That's where the light enters you." So this is, I think it's interesting, the galloped too, because of the horse analogy with the centaur is half human, half horse, and really living from our instinctual nature, which has been lost for so much of us, which is part of that Aries energy of knowing what we know in our gut, you know, and not talking ourselves out of that with our head or our history or whatever else. So it feels like a beautiful place to end, and just to honor the Mars and the Chiron energy that are very much in this chart today, in this mix, in this recipe, in this invitation, this cosmic invitation to burn away all that is false, to purify, and to really show up in this rebirth of who we are uniquely, that no one else can represent that speck of the universe. No one else can bring the gifts that we have to bring. And on some level, if we're really honest, we know what they are, because that's what we love. That's where our passion is. And if that spark hasn't been fed in a while and that fire is dimming, it is time to stoke the flames. It is time to take a risk and to live more authentically and more truthfully as we are. So there's the article in the chat. And if you have questions, yeah, Untamed. I can't believe I came across that book just now. Like, how perfect is that? I don't know. I feel like books and movies for me tend to be divinations. Like, I just happen to find the right one and go, oh, I need that quote right now. And then it was like that. I was driving yesterday and I happened to have that on Audible and hadn't listened to it. And I turned around, I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. So it's so fun when that happens. So if you want to write any questions in the chat, I don't think I can possibly go back through all of the questions that were before that. I'm just looking at the Facebook group. Yeah, I don't see any questions there. So I hope you will really do something. We'll do something to honor this moment. We'll honor this threshold. Oh, thank you. You're asking about the Venus star point. Okay, so the Venus star point, the best way to find out that. So, and I should thank you for asking that. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you asked that, because I don't want to end this without saying. So Venus star point, that term is Ariel Gutman. She is the mother of the Venus star point being used as a term and really penetrating more of astrology. And I don't have that book nearby because I've worked with it so much that it's all falling apart. I need a new one. She is amazing. She is like the elder of the Venus star point. Now she does it a bit differently, just so you know, she counts those two Venus star points as two different 9.5-month cycles. So it's not a continuous 19-month, but she has in there an ephemeris. So if you go in there, or She has it on her website, which is, I think, Sophia Venus. And I have a PDF that I think at some point, just was a part of that website. You could download the PDF to find your Venus star point. So I would recommend that you go back to the retrograde Venus before your birth, because what we're looking at here is we're looking at where Venus was before you were born. So this is including, this is your preconception being is included in this. Thank you. Yeah, Venus star rising. I think she just she just published a new version that has some updates. So that has it. And I don't think I can attach a PDF here, but she's, her take on it's a little bit different, but thank you to her for bringing in this Venus star point. I'm going to actually get to take some classes with her next month. I'm super excited, and drop into the Venus star point wisdom. So you can look it up in there. And actually, I don't know of many other ephemerises and ways to look back, unless you have programming and you want to go through and, really search out the Venus and the Sun conjunctions. You can do it that way too. Okay, so how can we heal the deep wound in our heart? Well, it's so interesting. I mean, yeah, but that was so much of what that book was about. I would encourage you actually to if you want to go deeper into that, is to read that book or listen to that book on Audible. The Glennon Doyle that I was quoting, was it called Untamed, I think, because she really talks about, and this is part of my practice for the last 5 years, is feeling it, but not getting lost in it. So this is where the Venus wisdom is so important, because it's not getting caught up in the story and drowning in it, but it is staying present, staying in heart center and feeling it, feeling the grief, feeling the hurt. And oftentimes we're avoiding the hurt. We're running, and we're numbing out. And so, it's like turning towards the wound is a piece to this, this invitation. Thank you. That's a beautiful question. Okay. Any books on the topic? Well, I mentioned that one. I don't know. I mean, honestly, it feels like it's emerging. And as more of us sync with Venus and share information, it feels like it's coming back. Every significant ancient culture synced with Venus meticulously. I happened this last June solstice to be at a gathering with a Mayan timekeeper who had this map of Venus in the back of his truck on canvas, and it was hanging out the side of the truck and hanging out the back of the truck. And I did not understand one single thing on that map. It was so complicated. I was like, whoa, I want to know what that is. And then, I just got a little taste. So this Venus cycle, the more of us that sync with it and move with it, especially the new Venus portal, and with the full moon that's happening, is going to happen, across from Venus. So the moon will be in Libra, illuminating that relationship piece, and Venus will be in Aries, illuminating that sacred self-centered piece. How do we integrate both? How do we show up fully in our truth, fully honoring who we are in our desire, and honor other, and not make them wrong? That is really the assignment. Now, only once in this whole 19-month cycle does the fullness of the Venus portal. So she begins the portal at a moon conjunction. And then about 2 weeks later, she's opposite the moon. And I call that full or peak Venus portal, because it's a peak of that energy. This is the only time in the 19-month cycle that the peak Venus portal is actually on the full moon. So there's this real opportunity to change our story. So she was with the new moon for this last new moon, the only time in the 19 months Venus and the moon met on the new moon, because the new moon and the full moon, that's the moon cycle with the sun. It doesn't have anything to do with Venus. It's its own cycle. But when we sync with Venus and we start our month with the new moon portal, we're syncing with Venus, the sun primarily, and the moon is right there. That's a gate. And that's what those gates are in that. Maybe I'll show that one more time. And if you need to go, totally understand, no worries. For those, this is going a little bit over, and I tend to get inspired you know, but this evolutionary feminine, it can include the emotional safety, but then it goes beyond it. It goes into the not knowing, having the bravery to go into the not knowing and to be willing to be fully embodied when we don't know and don't have the answers and have let go of control. Feels like that's the ticket here. Let me see if I can find that. Is that it? Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to this really quick, this map. So I created this. And so these gates here, you know, with dates all by them, you know, the underworld dates are down here because we can't really see Venus and moon in the underworld. But that is when Venus and moon meet together. So this was in the morning sky. You could see it. If you went out before dawn, you could see that sliver of the new moon with Venus in the morning sky. And that opened up the month, including the evolutionary feminine. I'm like, don't leave her out, including her, including the moon, including, you know, our ancestral wisdom and our stories and our conditioning. And then, of course, the sun, because that's all moving in relationship to the sun. And so it feels like this very integrated way to move with these months. That's how we pass time. That's how we chunk down these larger swaths of time into months that help us to have a rhythm with life. And so this new moon, new Venus portal that we started, you know, it started on the March 12th. That's when Venus and moon came together in the sign of Pisces. And then the next new Venus portal will be in April, and they're going to come together, Venus and moon, in the sign of Aries. So we're going to get another chance with this Aries energy. And that's right before Venus moves out of, she moves out of Aries and moves on into Taurus. And then in Taurus, she's going to rise as evening star. So, you know, as the sun is setting and the light is starting to fade, you're going to see her low on the horizon. At first, she'll be very low. And so to start looking for her, just make a relationship with the sky, make a relationship, go out and receive the light in your eyes, receive Venus's light in your eyes and see how it changes your heart. And there's a beautiful song, let the beauty drop from your eyes into your heart. Let that inform you to base your life on beauty. Be bold enough to create your life out of beauty and truth. Let your own truth be beautiful, even if it's different than everyone else's truth. Live by your truth in beauty without making anyone else wrong. Bold, fierce, loving. Use that warrior energy towards the creation. We've had a lot of destruction. You know, what are you going to create with that new bold energy? Okay, I don't think I can see the notes with this, can I? Okay, yes. Yeah, we're all connected in this heartbreak. And I just want to say that for someone who asked. I mean, I had a really good cry a couple of days ago, and I was just realizing it'd been a long time since I'd cried. And it's such a release. It's such a beautiful physiological release to let it flow, to let it move through, to feel the pain, and to also be open that there can be a different possibility, even if it's been hard and there's been obstacles and that same story has been looping for a long time. Yeah. And being grateful is such medicine if it's authentic and not forced. To really be grateful for everything that brought us to this moment that we're on right now. And this life that we have, we're here. We were born at like the greatest moment. Like, whoa, like we were born during this turn of ages. We're going to see more change in our lifetime and what's coming than who knows any other time. And it could really be positive. And if we honor that deep heart truth, I believe that it will be. Will slides be emailed to us tonight? Oh, I guess I could include this presentation in the replay if you wish. Okay. Ooh, Tani has a Venus star point in Aries. That's awesome. That's great. That's so beautiful. And Maria is a Virgo star point with Venus in Aries. So you want to be, those of you that know your star point and your sign, remember that star point is that energy infusing the larger picture. That's what I think I was starting to say this, I didn't say it. So this is important if you're still here. The 19-month cycle where she meets the sun in divine union at the beginning when she's retrograde, that seed, that's like the book. So we're in the Venus and Gemini book right now, right? So that Venus and Gemini energy informs us for the entire 19-month cycle. And then she moves signs, and then she moves signs, and then she moves signs, and that's like the chapters in the book. And she meets the moon at the gate, and she meets the moon at the next gate, and she meets the moon at the next gate. I mean, you could get so intimate with your chart that you knew where she was meeting the moon in your when you were born. You know, like for me, I know, because I know my chart really well, that she was, you know, right about here in, you know, if I were going to superimpose my own birth on this chart. So you could know how far away you were from a moon, you know, a moon meetup with a little help from an astrologer, you know. So please come into if you are a woman of heart, if you are a visionary, I do have a group for women called the Venus Wisdom Collective, and you're welcome to come into there and really engage in this process of learning about the Venus cycle and learning how to sync with Venus. And I had opened it up to men, and so we've had men in there. We've been in this inquiry of like, is this just for women? Is it for men? And with this Venus and Aries energy coming in really strongly, I've realized that it is, you know, for a space for women to connect with their feminine feels really important at this time, and for men to be those sacred protectors, and for, you know, for a support for women to embody this feminine. And we all need it. We all need it. And this experience, you know, of being tampered down is often very specific to women and women's experience, and part of this rising. Oh, yay. Okay, so I'm just seeing if I can attach this PDF, because can I attach a PDF? That would be so cool. I don't know if I can, but this ephemeris that Ariel Gutman created is really beautiful. There it is. Oh my gosh, I just saw it. I think I can. I did. Okay, check it out in the chat. I think it's there. Let me know. It said it did. It says find your Venus star point. And so you're going to need to go through there, and you're going to need to find your birth, and then you need to go back. So go back past, if there's a Venus star point that is direct and it's not retrograde, go past it to go all the way to the one that seeded your cycle. That's what I found to be the most true. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but you don't see it? Oh, shoot. It says it's there, 4:37 p.m. Me to everyone. Find your Venus star point PDF. Anyway, Facebook groups won't let you share PDFs anymore either. So I don't know. It's totally there. Okay, cool. So everyone grab it now, because we're going to end this, and you're going to want to have that if you want to do your research. So let's take 3 breaths together. Let's give gratitude and thanks for this time together, for this ability to connect across time and space through our hearts, and see if you can find right now, as you're breathing, a sense of warmth in your heart. Breathing into that warmth, maybe imagining a flame in your heart, and it's growing. And as we all breathe into these flames in our heart, they get bigger and stronger, and we're all feeding each other's flame to live from our truth, to live in gratitude for the beauty of this life, and to honor that part of us that knows that it is meant to be more beautiful than most of what we see. What we have created is not our full potential as humans. What we have created has left so many out, has created so much suffering. And we're at a time where we are aligning with the power to recreate the world, to redream the world. where all children are fed and loved, and their own spark of genius is nurtured from the very beginning of life, so they can bring their gifts, so they don't have these obstacles, they don't have this healing to do, where the community is knitting together and supporting each other to honor each other's gifts and to give and receive from each other, and to connect with nature and live in harmony with the natural world, as all ancient humans did. Every single culture, if we trace it back far enough, lived in harmony with the land, lived in harmony with the unseen world. So dreaming into that, imagining that, allowing that flame to get brighter, to get stronger, and imagining that that flame is love, that you are being purified by your own love to get stronger in your quest for showing up in this world exactly as you are, for being seen, for facing the fear of death, facing the fear of annihilation that we face when we show up fully alive who we are, facing the fear of failure, shining brighter in the face of that, shining brighter in the face of fear, knowing that there are millions of people who want the same future as you, who value love, beauty, care, who value equality, justice, who want a just world where everyone is expressing themselves at their fullest, and our attention and our energies go towards creation instead of destruction, connection instead of separation. And if there's an image that comes as you're imagining this fire and feeling this fire, you can put that image right in the middle, that image of the future, that image of your dream for what the world could be. Put it right in the fire. Let it burn into existence. Let it burn through into the unseen world. Dreaming with our hearts. Let it speak to you when you're waking. Have you noticed the synchronicities? Have you noticed the slightly unusual things that happen? The numbers you see, the animals that cross your path, the flower that catches your eye, that are speaking to you. The dream within the dream, the waking dream, asking us to wake up in the dream and remember that we are master creators. This is in our DNA. We are activating our light body. Venus meets sun. Light body. Embodying light, embodying love at a level that we have never seen or experienced or have no history for. We are those pioneers now. We are creating a different world now. So thank you for being present, coming out of that dreaming space as slowly as you need to. Many thanks, much gratitude, lots of love. Yeah, here we are, dreamers. And I haven't even checked in with the Facebook group to see what they're thinking about all this. Oh, good. Okay, I will put the link. It's called Venus Wisdom Collective. And I guess I forgot to mention that, huh? Sometimes I'm not always so keen on the detail. My Mercury mind is at 27 degrees Sagittarius at the galactic center. And I do work a little bit to remember all the details sometimes. The dream is very easy for me. Sometimes the details escape me. So I'll go ahead and put the group in here. And I do ask that you please answer the questions. They're very brief, but one of them is about your 3 values that you live from. And I think that's something that is really good for us to write down. What are the 3 values that you live from? And, that's really what you're showing up for in this life, is to live from those values and to remember them. So that's there. Venus Wisdom. The Venus Wisdom Collective is the name of the group. And women of heart who are here are welcome. And I will definitely keep doing events with men and women and beings that are anywhere on the spectrum of gender. You know, we'll keep showing up for those, but that group is going to be reborn as a group for women visionaries, to really hold each other in understanding and syncing with this Venus cycle and helping each other to do so. So that's our rebirth that's happening there. And I'm just going to put this in the Facebook group as well. Okay. Oh, can I comment? No, I can't comment because I'm live. Okay, I'll do that after. What a delight. Yes. Oh, yes. Maria saying, I love you all, brothers and sisters of this new earth. You are so welcome, Jessica. You're welcome, Angelica. You're welcome, Cecilia. Yes, yes, yes. And you will receive these gifts from me, and as well as a bit of a decoder if you had difficulty figuring out your phase. You know, there's a way to do it by looking at your astrology chart. So wonderful. Just looking at the notes. Indira, thank you, thank you. Oh, thanks, Susan. And Aurora, thank you for your wisdom. Yeah, I love that you're bringing that so clearly. All right, I think this is it. We've had a good long time together. I always think an hour, and then I realize it's probably 2 hours that we need to do most things these days if we're going to really slow down and be together and get all the information and have some time with our bodies. And so, you know, I'm just really holding you all in my heart as we move through this threshold and really claim that moment of divine union within, receiving that, and may you be inspired. And if you have no idea what any of it means, I would encourage you to just sit with that, to sit in the not knowing, to delight in the not knowing. And that's the discovering a new way of learning. Instead of being stressed about it and feeling bad or feeling like we're not smart, just delight in the not knowing what it means, not knowing what's coming next, not knowing anything. It's like that there's a deliciousness there that is really inviting us to stay present. And you will know if you sit with yourself long enough in that state, your knowing will arise, your deeper knowing, not your surface knowing, not necessarily just your more superficial desires, but the deeper knowing will come through, will push you in the direction that's next direction for you. And she actually talks about that in the book Untamed. It's so great. It's so great. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I'm excited to finish listening to it. So much love to each of you. It's a delight, and more soon. Stay tuned. And I think you're all on my mailing list now, so you can look for future events and stay connected in whatever way. And blessed dreaming. Bye-bye.